If your path is made of seawater, you'll never keep your feet beneath you. But since the sea is always right, isn't that the right thing to do? And if shit that does happen to her, shouldn't she just look up and she'd float? So Númenor is not my official least favorite story, because there's so many stupid stories in the Rings of Power. They're all dumb, guys. Let's be honest. They're all dumb. But it's sort of the most bland. It's the one I care about almost the least, just because everything is so meh. It's so mid. I just don't care about it. I mean, last time what we had is we had the Númenoreans. We had Miriel usurped in the quickest 10-minute usurpation of a throne ever, bloodless and uncaring. In fact, no one will fight for Miriel, it seems. In this episode, everybody gives up pretty easily. The entire royal line has been shifted, and no one cares. Everyone is totally fine with it. You know why? Because she's an elf lover. That's their whole reasoning for it. Before I jump into it, remember, guys, we've got thewandering.com/member. You can become a member and get our extended podcast every week that it comes out. Right now, we're on the Rings of Power, so it's a little delayed. I'm sorry. We are reading through The Hobbit. We're in chapter 3, halfway through chapter 3, and we're taking it slowly. We're enjoying ourselves through it. We're doing half a chapter a week once we get back to it. Thanks, Rings of Power. But we do an extended podcast. Every episode is like 15 to 20 minutes longer, and you get access to entire Discord community. You can become a freeloader by clicking the link below or going to the show notes and clicking the become a freeloader Discord link right there. But you can actually become a member, and then on your profile page, just boom, click link to Discord, and you will get access to an entire Discord community there, where you've got we're approaching 100 folks in there right now, which is really a lot of fun. Not everybody signs up. By 100 folks, I mean 100 members, paying members. Not everybody signs up to the Discord chat either. So if you aren't, and you are a member, make sure you go to the profile page on thewandering.com for your account, or click on my account, I think, and then scroll to the bottom. There's a little Discord link there. Okay, let's get to the Númenorians. Oh, hey, I don't ever say this on YouTube. Like, subscribe, blah blah blah, because you love Tolkien, not the Rings of Power. The reason you click is because you love Tolkien, not the Rings of Power. I know some of you aren't clicking because of that, but that's the reason to click, because you love it. Okay, so let's return to Númenor. Númenor is now under the power of Pharazon, and we learn they do say our Pharazon right there. Hey, special effects look good. The city's big. Unless you're actually in the streets, then it's tiny. And we'll see that again this way. So Pharazon and Uber Beta male, his son, I learned his name actually, Kemen. I had to look it up. Kemen, I think. They're talking, and they finally bring up the desire for deathlessness. Pharazon actually makes that point. Great, good. You brought it up about a season too late. But what's really weird is in this scene, Pharazon is not pleased with his son, and he goes into this line about his mother prophesying, Kemen's mother, Pharazon's son, prophesying that he would meet ill ends. And he's like, oh, tell me more. And he's like, no, not unless you do this thing for me. I'm like, what? This is the dumbest decision, the dumbest ex machina. Like, oh, hey, there's this prophecy. Mommy's had this prophecy about you, and now I'm going to get you to do what I want. That's the line. But this guy, right? He's got the most ridiculous face. He's the guy you just want to clock the most, right? They if that was their goal, man, they got the right actor for the job. We move on to Miriel and Elendil. Miriel and Elendil, who have now a thing going for each other. And she asks Elendil, what did you see when you touched the Palantir? No, not when you touched me, because that's right there. That's a thing too. Like I said in the last episode, everything has to have a new relationship, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago. Everything has to have a relationship. That is the only way for them to create tension between characters, and when characters are apart from each other. They can't have a relationship that is not romantic between anybody, it seems like. Just like here, Miriel and Elendil are now having a thing. So she touches his moob armor. Don't get too grabby there, Miriel. It's a little dangerous between the two of you. And Elendil says he had a vision. He had a vision in the Palantir of riding to somewhere. So we see this vision of him riding off into right there, into somewhere. This is the city behind him, and we don't know if he's riding east or west or whatever, but he's riding to somewhere. Perhaps he's riding to, I don't know, get a Palantir to save the white tree. No, that would be behind him. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's sailing to. He was gonna sail to Númenor or to Valinor. I don't know. We don't know. But because he tells Muriel this, because he says, I had this vision of me doing something that wasn't evil, that wasn't the world coming to an end. Remember, Muriel's vision was of the wave crashing over Númenor. That was her vision of the entire thing. That was why she was scared. And now she hears that Elendil has his vision, and immediately her tone changes. Like, she's like, oh, well, you had a vision. That's our destiny now. You need to be in control of this destiny. And that's it. She's totally 100% now bought into him being the leader, I guess. Let's have a little moment of lore again. The Palantir, the seeing stones, the things that show them things, they've essentially combined the Palantir with Galadriel's mirror, where Frodo looks into her mirror and sees things in the Fellowship of the Ring. The Palantir were quite literally communication devices created by Feanor. And so this is why Elendil brought them, or Isildur, right? He brought them, the Númenoreans, the faithful, brought the 7 remaining ones to Middle-earth so that they could talk to each other. So Arnor up north could talk to Gondor down south, so that we would have, what was the name of the tower near the Hobbiton, where there was one too. I can't remember it. Anyway, there's a tower there. And so these seeing stones, all of them were large too. In fact, one of them was so large you couldn't turn it. It was, I think the smallest one was supposed to be a foot in diameter. So, they're pretty big. They're hefty. And the point of the Palantir is to communicate. And so you would actually literally point it to where you wanted it to go. Palantir, like freaking rings in this show, can be whatever you want it to be. It can be the vision, right? And in fact, that's all it gives people here is a vision. At least in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, it was Saruman communicating with Sauron, right? That was the point of it. He communicated with him through it in the same way that Denethor communicated with, or at least saw Sauron in a way right there, because Sauron had one. Here, it's used to create prophecies. Like we had stupid Pharazon telling the prophecy to his son that his wife made. Now it's the prophecy of the Palantir, right? It is literally a crystal ball for the future. That's what they've made. They've dumbed it down into a cheap crystal ball, like in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, where there's a witch's head or whatever into it. Oh man, it's been so many years since I've been there. You guys know what I'm talking about. Oh, so after this, we get to the latest. We learned about how King Durin is now a tax the rich lefty. Here we have the Númenorian knife buyback program. So what we find out is that anyone loyal to Muriel has to give up their weaponry, and so they all just wait in line because they're all totally fine with it. They're just like, yeah, oh. Pharazon took over. I went to Middle-earth and fought for Muriel, and we took out the orcs there. I'll give up. Nobody fights for her. She has to have been perhaps the weakest possible queen in all of Middle-earth. Nobody cares that there was a coup. Nothing is done. Like, I go back to the details, right? You have to make it believable. If you want to create a story that we entrust our mind share to, that we entrust our emotions to, you've got to make it believable. And for the ones who are fighting the grand army of 3 ships of the Númenorians, all these people, maybe that's why, because there were so few of them, they have no army, but all these people they just go in and they just, they're just in line to give everything back. That's it. Even Elendil just goes in and he's like, yeah, what are you doing? We're just buying everything back. And he finds his daughter, who now for some reason is completely in the tank for Pharazon, and she's against him because Muriel, as she says, she peeped into the stone. into an elf stone, right? Because as we learned, the elves are coming for their jobs. And the one thing that you can find out from the elf stone is that the elves are coming for their jobs. That's what she really cares about. I guess we didn't know she had a relationship with her dad at all, so it doesn't matter that she's ruined it. But wouldn't you think that a daughter who's grown up with her father, she wouldn't throw everything aside so easily? She says, careful what you do. And he says, oh, your path. I love these phrases that are so tortured and convoluted that you just have to read them and laugh. So Elendil says to her, your path is made of seawater. Take care to keep your feet beneath you. It's a long way to the bottom. It feels like I could go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or one of those fun AIs and come up with something that's better. But this was their first AI shot at it. Your path is made of seawater. Take care to keep your feet beneath you. It's a long way to the bottom. In fact, if your path is made of seawater, you'll never keep your feet beneath you. But since the sea is always right, isn't that the right thing to do? And if shit that does happen to her, shouldn't she just look up and she'd float? Because, boats look up. That's why they float. Oh, I love how we can take their phrases and completely abuse them by everything that they've said and show the inanity, the how they're trying to fit triangular shapes into circles every single time they make these phrases. Okay, and then Elendil gives up and instantly says, "You are no captain," to Kemen, our Pharazon son, who apparently this is his task now to take back the entire 8-person army that's left of Númenor. And we have this moment where, okay, I'll give you my sword. I'm not going to fight for the queen that I fought for earlier. I'll fight the orcs, but heaven knows I won't fight you, Kemen. And he says, you are no captain anymore. And he turns around and he's going to say something really important. And he says, you're right. I'm not. And then everybody, all the people around him, I guess they were his shipmates. They were his crew. And they say, thank you, Captain. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Captain. It's an attempt at manufactured pity, manufactured empathy, I guess. We don't really care. We don't know who anybody is except for this Elendil. And that's it. Like that's so now the army is gone. That's the entire scene. So now we know our Pharazon is in control of everything because we saw the 12 people giving up their swords. That's it. Okay. So the second scene we have with Númenor, it displays their misunderstanding of religion, of Númenors and faith. So we get the scene, right? They're in some shrine somewhere, and they set off little candles.
Help them to find
it. They set off little candles on shells, I guess. Here it is. And they abuse. Oh gosh, they abuse my favorite line. Well, one of my favorite lines. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. When in a golden mist of foam sighing on the margins of the world from the Golden Hall in the Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite line. Just I had to put that out there. But to take this and now to repurpose it for the Númenorians. Okay. When men die, they do not go to a far green country under a swift sunrise. In fact, the point of that is that that's Valinor. It's not men. We don't know where they go. That was Tolkien's point. The gift of men is death. They're not stuck on Earth. They get to move on and to be in the presence of a Iluvatar. But they repurpose it because it's a member berry and that's all they've got. Okay, so here's my problem with the scene, right? They've talked about faith in the past. They've talked about the things that the Númenorians believe. No, they haven't, because they actually haven't talked about the things the Númenorians believe. That's the whole point. Elendil and Miriel have a discussion about faith in second to the last episode of season 1. But they never talk about faith in what? Even here, they don't really talk about faith. The writers have no experience with actual faith. They think faith is simply an act, going through a ritual like this. Truly, ritual is a part of it. And what it does is it reminds you of the things you believe. And it mortars together the walls of your foundation of faith. But here, this is the only thing of faith that we get. It's shallow and it's kind of lame. And then we go on, and the only other thing that they have in this faith that we learn of after they have this discussion here about faith, because Kemen, beta male of Middle Earth there, the chief beta male, he comes in and he says, we're tearing down this joint because why, guys? Why? We need an aqueduct through the shrine. I feel like the guys, the writers were sitting around the writer's room and they're going, guys, what are we gonna do here to get rid of the religion? Like, just start making this religion a part of it, because that was probably one of the things they heard. It's like, oh, the Númenóreans have no religion, but yet, right? They worship the one true God. They're the only people in all of Middle Earth that actually had a temple, right? That the king would go to the top of the Mount Parma, right? He would actually go there to worship Iluvatar. It's the only people group in all of Middle Earth that Tolkien talks about that. So it's kind of important, you would think, that to have that there. But this is what they give us. And so in order to make this important, they say we're tearing down the shrine for an aqueduct. How old is this city at this point? Well, according to them, if we just took it in the middle of the Second Age, it's about at least 1,300, 1,400 years old. Probably, maybe 1,500, right? Since the beginning of the Second Age to now. I'm assuming this always happens about 1,500 years after the beginning of the Second Age. So the city that's been around that long needs an aqueduct now, in the middle of the shrine, next to the water. I'm sorry. It's like, I'm sure you could come up with the reason for it, but just seems so silly, so thoughtless, like they didn't think it out. So what does he do in order to anger them? Well, there's the relic of Nienna, right? Nienna is the Vala of grief and sorrow. And she gives strength and compassion to those in the halls of Mandos with healing and compassion. So she gives strength. Yeah, that's right. So what she does is she gives strength to the elves who are in the halls of Mandos through like compassion, right? She's there for them. She understands. And Kemen, he just goes in here and he just he's the jerk that he is, the most punchable face in all of Middle Earth. He just drops the relic right on the floor because he's a jerk. I don't like the idea that they have a relic that they were worshiping Nienna either. I wish they would have really tied into Iluvatar. Okay, no, I don't, because I want them to go so far afield that we forget this in a few years. But if somebody's writing about this, the idea that relics are what's important is a little shallow to me. I don't appreciate that. I think they should have made it far more. In fact, they should have introduced the Númenóreans as faithful worshipers of the one true God, and those that hold fast to the promise, or at least the faithful do hold fast to the promise of the promise that the Valar gave them in Númenor, and value that. But here, what do they value? They value a small little relic. Then we get to possibly the worst fight. Yet no, Galadriel's little fight in Númenor is bad. But this is now Elendil fights with Kemen. And because, Kemen's going to arrest Elendil. So Kemen goes in and right here, look at that. He's able to grab Elendil, the guy who was in the army, and drown him practically. And then he randomly fights again. Look, he's able to just, he's being drowned, and no, he's not. He can shove him off. You have to actually suspend belief. Those details matters, guys. You have to suspend belief in order to actually believe that this guy, Kemen, could fight Elendil, a warrior. This guy is the most beta male. He's done nothing. He's there making grand statements without any backup at all. Why anybody would believe him, or give him any deference seems pretty silly and rather sightless, right? They don't get him. Why would anybody trust, listen to this Kemen guy? Like, he's done nothing. Why would the soldiers be there with him? I mean, what has Pharazon done to show anything anywhere? He's had the easiest coup in all of history, and the soldiers just all give up. And then they make the dumb move of, right, like Elendil almost kills him, and he says, "Don't do it, son." So he doesn't do it. So he throws down his sword at the feet of Kemen, and then Kemen runs him through with it, with his back to him. And then Kemen has Elendil arrested. we don't really care. It's so mealy mouthed, so boring that we don't really care. So Elendil's arrested, but that's not going to happen. And since we know the story, well, theoretically, unless they kill off Elendil in new and interesting ways, we know where it's going. None of this really matters to us at all. And Kemen, this guy you really just don't want to see on the screen. I don't know. I feel the most mid about this here. Like I just don't care. I'm more annoyed that the writers just don't understand what faith and trust and religion is, right? Why would the Númenoreans actually worship God? Why would they have an altar? Why would they go up to the Meneltarma and worship from there once a year? The kings of Númenor would do that. Show us that. Show us the value of that. Show us that Númenor was a gift from the Valar, that the everyday people value them. And don't show us that they live in this city that feels so small. I mean, look, everything right here, right? It's an alleyway. There's nothing grand about it. The only grand shots you get are deep and wide. Literally, they're deep, like it's off in the distance, and they're wide angle, so deep and wide. Reminds me of a song. So anyway, that's I just feel so meh about Númenor. I don't care about any of it, and I can't make fun of it as much as I can The Hobbit. So maybe that's why, since this really has become Mystery Science Theater 3000, Middle Earth, fake Middle Earth style. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I know this review was a little less than perfect because Michael's not here, and I miss Michael. Michael brings a lot to the show. His knowledge of lore is deep. He remembers all the names that I don't because I'm really bad with names in Middle Earth. I enjoy the world that was created that isn't the Rings of Power. So if you love Tolkien, go read Unfinished Tales, man. I will say one of the best times we had on the podcast was when we read The Mariner's Wife, the story of Aldarion and Erendis, Tolkien's Unfinished Tale. And it happens between the years about, I think it's like 700 to 1000 of the Second Age in Númenor. So you really get a sense of what Númenor was like and what the kings of Númenor was like. And we have a whole series of that. If you go to thewarming.com, hover over podcast, and then click on, I believe we have Unfinished Tales in there. If not, just listen to the podcast. Earlier this year we did it. It was great. Right now we're going through The Hobbit. We're enjoying that a lot. You can get the extended podcast at thewandering.com/member. And we would appreciate your support, guys. We love Tolkien so much. And we can laugh at the Rings of Power and enjoy our time reviewing it, just like, oh man, I'm trying to remember those characters from Mystery Science Theater 3000. Tom Servo, I remember that one. Crow, yes, Tom Servo and Crow, I remembered. All right. The Rings of Power is certainly 2024's best opportunity to make fun of, right? In Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I don't know how to do like those three heads, but man, I got to get that going with Michael. Next week, I think Michael will be back. He's moving across the United States. I appreciate all you guys watching us, even if it's just me. I know you're missing 50% of the joy that we have watching this because, man, we riff off each other well, and I miss that too. But he's on the road, driving across the U.S. with his family right now, and we should have him back next week, we think. If not, guys, it'll be only me. But Rings of Power, 3 more episodes to go. Thank the Lord. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.